Welcome to the steroid hormones class. It is the fifth unit, third section topic of human physiology paper. In this section, we are going to see about steroid hormones. Steroid hormones, everybody knows that these hormones are derived from the sterol background. The backbone of these hormones will be derived from sterol, that is the perhydrophenanthracene, cyclopentanoperhydrophenanthracene. That is the backbone which derived all these hormones. That's why they are known as steroid hormones. And these steroid hormones are usually produced from adrenal cortex. So this adrenal cortex is going to be the outer layer of the adrenal gland, and this interior region, that is the central region of this adrenal gland, is known as adrenal medulla, which is going to produce epinephrine, norepinephrine and dopamine, whereas the outer region is going to produce all these steroid hormones. The adrenal medulla plays a vital role in fight and flight responses, whereas the steroid hormones is going to play a vital role in different mechanisms. For example, glucocorticoids plays a vital role in carbohydrate and protein metabolism. Mineralocorticoids plays a vital role in mineral homeostasis, and the androgens, that is the sex steroid hormone, which plays a vital role in reproductive function. You can see now the structure of an adrenal gland. This adrenal gland is going to contain an outer region which is known as the cortex, and inner region which is known as the medulla. The cortex region is going to further divided into three regions like zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis. So the zona fasciculata and zona reticularis is going to produce cortisol and androgens, whereas the zona glomerulosa is going to produce the hormone aldosterone. They are nothing but the mineralocorticoids, whereas the cortisol comes to the group of glucocorticoids, whereas these androgens comes to the category of sex steroids. Whereas the medullary region of adrenal gland is going to produce epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, now we will move on to the basic structure of these steroid hormones. So these steroid hormones is going to have this specific nucleus, that is nothing but a cyclopentanoperhydrophenanthracene nucleus. It is derived from the cholesterol. The cholesterol is going to have the 27 carbons, which are named from the first carbon to 27, you can see here. And then from this cholesterol, the precursor molecule of these steroid hormones is going to be a pregnant molecule. So this pregnant molecule is going to contain 21 carbon. From this, the corticosteroids are going to be synthesized, and then it is converted into a 19 carbon backbone, androsten. From this androsten, there are about androgens are going to be synthesized, and then 18 carbon derivative, estrane derivative, where from there we are going to synthesize this estrogen. So this is about the overview of the steroid hormones. You can see in terms of the number of carbon, I already told you all these steroid hormones are mainly produced from the cholesterol. That is why they are going to have the cholesterol backbone. And then we should not recommend zero cholesterol diet for everyone. This is because also the other reason, the important hormones like steroid hormones, even bile acids and vitamin D, they are all produced from cholesterol. So we need cholesterol, but we should have a reduced amount of cholesterol. That's what everyone should know it. So you can see this gonadal and adrenocorticoid steroids are of three types. They are known as the C21 steroids, and then C19 steroids, and then C18 steroids. C21 steroids, they have about 2 carbon chain at position 17. C19 steroids have a keto or hydroxyl group at position 17. C18 steroids is going to have a 17 keto or hydroxyl group. So when you talk about this steroid hormone, we should know about the positions of the cholesterol structure. So we should know the position, which is 17th position, which is 11th position, which is the 16th position. So we should know all these things. Then only we can know the structure of the steroids. So most of the C19 steroids have a keto group at position 17, and they are also called as 17 keto steroids. Okay, then the C21 steroids have hydroxyl group at position 17, in addition to the side chain which are usually present in the 17th position. That's why they are usually called as a 17-hydroxycorticoids or 17-hydroxycorticosteroids. Okay, so the C19 steroids is usually called as 17-ketosteroids. The C21 steroids is usually called as a 17-hydroxycorticosteroids. So we should not get confusion with the names. Then C19 steroids have an androgenic activity. Okay, then according to Celi's terminology, the C21 steroids are grouped as a mineralocorticoids or glucocorticoids. As the name clearly indicates, mineralocorticoids is going to play a role in mineral maintenance. Glucocorticoids is going to play a major role in the maintenance of glucose. That's what they are having different names. And then you can see the slide which clearly indicates from where these hormones are synthesized. You can see the first source for these hormones is going to be a cholesterol. The cholesterol is converted into a pregnenolone. Then pregnenolone is going to have about different carbon, that is C21 carbons are present in this particular pregnenolone. From this, when you add extra hydroxyl group, then it becomes 17-hydroxypregnenolone. When you remove this acetyl group by the action of the enzyme 17-20 lyase, you will get a dehydroepiandrosterone. Dehydroepiandrosterone is going to be formed. Then this is acted by the sulfokinase enzyme, which will lead to DHEA sulfate. Dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate is going to be formed. Then this pregnenolone might undergo another reaction where you can see this 3-beta-hydroxypyridine dehydrogenase. So you can see this, the change of the double bond as well as the hydroxyl group is converted into a keto group. So pregnenolone is converted into a progesterone. Then after this progesterone is formed, then 21-beta-hydroxylase enzyme converts this progesterone into 7-deoxycorticosterone. So here you can see this one hydroxyl group is going to be added. Then after this reaction, another enzyme known as 11-beta-hydroxylase, which converts 11-deoxycorticosterone into corticosterone. So you are getting a functional hormone corticosterone. Likewise, the hydroxylase enzyme will add hydroxyl group to progesterone to form 17-beta-hydroxyprogesterone. 11-deoxycorticosterone is converted into 11-deoxycortisol. Like this, different compounds are produced. Then you can see this, the 17-hydroxyprogesterone is converted into androstenedione by means of removing this acetyl group and conversion of hydroxyl group into ketone. Then from this androstenedione, testosterone and estradiols are formed. From 11-deoxycortisol, cortisol is formed. The difference between 11-deoxycortisol and cortisol is addition of this hydroxyl group at the 11th position. So this is how all the steroid hormones are going to be synthesized. Mainly here you can see the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, how they are synthesized. And then these production of these hormones are mainly controlled by brain, by the nervous system, with the help of the another hormone which is known as the ACTH, adrenocorticoid trophic hormone. And this hormone controls the production of all these hormones from the cholesterol by regulating the different enzymes which are involved in the synthesis of these steroid hormones. For example, you can see here the conversion of different steroid hormones are a control of this protein kinase A. This protein kinase A is again controlled by this ACTH. This ACTH is produced from the brain, so where the production of these steroid hormones are in control. Okay, so next, this is another simplified structure of the production of this sex hormones. You can see this, we already know corticosterone. From the corticosterone, aldosterone synthase can convert corticosterone into 18-hydroxycorticosterone, and this 18-hydroxycorticosterone is actually converted into aldosterone. So this is a mineralocorticoid. Functional component of mineralocorticoid is synthesized from this corticosterone. So glucocorticoids, we will see now about the glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids comes under the category of 21 steroids. Half-life of this cortisol is going to be 70 to 90 minutes. And then if it is in the form of corticosterone, it is around 50 minutes. The cortisol, corticosterone and cortisone, these are the three functional form of this particular glucocorticoids. But the cortisol is the famous functional form of this hormone. So this glucocorticoid is going to regulate carbohydrate metabolism. So how it is going to regulate the carbohydrate metabolism? By promoting gluconeogenesis in liver, and then by inhibiting the uptake of and utilization of glucose by peripheral cells. Because of this nature, glucocorticoids are also otherwise known as anti-insulin agent. Because insulin reduces the blood glucose level, whereas it is responsible for increasing the blood glucose level. That's why it is known as the anti-insulin nature. Which one? This glucocorticoids. And they are also increase the body glucose level. When you see the role of this glucocorticoids on protein metabolism, glucocorticoid promotes the catabolism of proteins so that it will decrease the cellular proteins, and it increases the plasma level of amino acid, and it increases the protein content in liver. So since it is going to promote the breakdown of the proteins into amino acids, when you have a large amount of glucocorticoids, it may lead to negative nitrogen balance because it increases the breakdown of more amino acids, so that the amino acids are converted into actually glucose. So when this conversion occurs, the amino groups are released, and then the amino groups are converted into urea. Urea is excreted in urine. So that is how the negative nitrogen balance might be induced if we have higher level of glucocorticoids. Then the glucocorticoids, how it is going to play a role in fat metabolism. It increases the mobilization of fatty acid from the adipose tissue. It increases the concentration of fatty acid in blood. It increases the availability of fat for energy production. So that these hormones is going to have a ketogenic effect. Okay, so since the fatty acids are increased in blood, it might be responsible for obesity. So that is what the negative role of this particular glucocorticoids. And then when you see the water metabolism, glucocorticoids plays an important role in maintenance of this water. It actually increases the water excretion. So when you have greater amount of glucocorticoids, you may lose more water. When you see the role in mineral metabolism, it is responsible for retention of sodium. And then it increases the excretion of potassium. That's how when you have greater amount of this glucocorticoids, it may cause edema, hypertension and hypokalemia condition because potassium is lost, and it can also induce muscle weakness. With respect to bone, it is responsible for osteoclastic activity, breakdown of bone. So it inhibits bone formation and bone mineralization reaction. So when you have more amount of glucocorticoids, it may induce osteoporosis. So that is what the negative role of this hormone. And then when you see the muscle, as we know that it will induce muscle weakness. When you come to blood cells, glucocorticoids decrease the number of circulating eosinophils by increasing the destruction of eosinophils in reticuloendothelial cells. These hormones also decrease the number of basophils and lymphocytes and increase the number of circulating neutrophils, RBC and platelets. When you see the blood vessel, it will be responsible for a vasoconstrictor. And then when you see the nervous system, glucocorticoids are essential for normal functioning of the nervous system. Insufficiency of these hormones can cause personality changes like irritability and lack of concentration. Sensitivity to olfactory and taste stimuli increases in adrenal insufficiency. Permissive action of glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids in related with permissive action of glucocorticoids refers to execution of action of some hormones only in the presence of glucocorticoids. So that's how we know about glucocorticoids. Now we move on to the next type of steroid hormone, that is mineralocorticoids. So mineralocorticoids are the corticoids that act on the minerals. That's why it gets the name mineralocorticoids. And then they maintain mostly, they regulate the levels of sodium and potassium, because these two are one is an intracellular mineral, another is an extracellular. If you see a sodium, okay, so and potassium, they will all compensate the ionic concentration of intracellular as well as extracellular. Mineralocorticoids are secreted by zona granulosa of adrenal cortex, and they are in the group of C21 steroid family. They have an half-life of 20 minutes, and then they are transported by binding with plasma proteins, especially globulins. The binding is a loose, and 50% of these hormones are present in the free form because the binding is loose. Then the role of these mineralocorticoids. So on sodium ions, aldosterone, which is the functional form of this mineralocorticoids, they act on the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct and increases the resorption of sodium. So the concentration of sodium is retained. So when you have more amount of this hormone, hypersecretion of this mineralocorticoids, it may lead to hypernatremia. So when you have more amount of this aldosterone, you can retain more amount of the sodium. When you have less amount, hyposecretion of aldosterone, the loss of sodium through urine increases and it leads to hypernatremia. Okay, so thus it proves the importance of aldosterone. Then extracellular fluid volume. When sodium ions are reabsorbed from the renal tubule, simultaneously water is also reabsorbed. So water reabsorption is almost equal to sodium reabsorption. So the net result is the increase in extracellular fluid volume. Okay, so this is how the water is also retained in the body. So when you have more amount of this hormone, it may lead to edema formation. That's what the problem of this particular hormone. Then in the case of intestine, the aldosterone increases sodium absorption from the intestine, especially from the colon region. And then it prevents the loss of sodium in the feces. So when you are not having aldosterone, then it leads to diarrhea, where more amount of sodium and water is lost. When you consider about the blood pressure, it increases this ECF volume, so it automatically increases the blood pressure. When you come to potassium, the aldosterone increases the potassium secretion through this renal tubule. So we are going to lose potassium when this hormone is in the higher level. So in blood, you have a lesser level of potassium. In urine, you have more loss of potassium. Then when you come to hydrogen ion concentration, so sodium is going to be reabsorbed. So it is in order to compensate the sodium reabsorption, H plus ions are released out of this renal tubule. So more amount of sodium is going to be lost in the urine. So hypersecretion of this hormone may lead to alkalosis, whereas an hyposecretion causes acidosis with respect to this H plus ion. Okay, more amount of H plus ion is lost, it is alkali. When more amount of H plus ion is retained, it leads to acidosis. That's what hypersecretion of this mineralocorticoids. When you see the sweat glands, aldosterone has almost the similar effect on sweat glands and salivary glands as it shows on renal tubules. Sodium is reabsorbed from sweat glands under the influence of aldosterone. Thus, the loss of sodium from the body is prevented. Similar effect is also observed in the saliva. So, with respect to this mineralocorticoid, the sodium is retained, potassium is excreted out. So, this is how this hormone functions. And functioning of these hormones maintains the minerals in our body. So, when you see a recap of the steroid hormone, few things we can recollect. That is, one is all steroid hormones are mostly derived from the cholesterol. So cholesterol is necessary source for these steroid hormones. We might have C19 steroid or C21 steroids or C17 steroids. So in the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids comes under the category of C21 steroids. And most of these steroid hormones are produced from this adrenal cortical region, because medullary region is going to produce epinephrine or norepinephrine. And then glucocorticoids, cortisone, hydroxycorticosterone, and then cortisol is the functional form. Aldosterone is the functional form of mineralocorticoids. And then the glucocorticoids is going to maintain mainly the glucose level. So it wants to keep the glucose level in a higher level. So that is how it functions. So for maintaining the glucose, it converts fats into glucose, it converts protein into glucose. Since the glucose is retained, water is also retained. So like that, it increases the blood pressure. It also has an immense role on bone. It prevents the bone formation. It increases the osteoclastic activity. It reduces the muscle functions. Okay, so these are the functions of glucocorticoids. When you come to mineralocorticoids, it maintains the level of mineral in our body. It increases the sodium absorption, and it increases the potassium excretion. So if you want the sodium and potassium should be in balance, then you need this hormone is also under control, mineralocorticoids. And both these hormones are under the control of the tropic hormone ACTH. The ACTH actually controls the production of these glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. So with the help of these two hormones, we are maintaining the glucose level, glucose homeostasis, as well as the mineral metabolism. So that is how these two steroids. So that is how we saw about the steroid hormone section. It comes under the category of the human physiology paper in the 5th unit as a third section. If you have any questions with respect to this topic, you can contact me either through mail sivabai@gmail.com, or you can contact me through phone 9865866168. Okay, so for the preparation of this presentation, we utilized these few books like Ganong's Review of Medical Physiology, Wander's Human Physiology, and Guyton Hall textbook of Medical Physiology, and Fox Human Physiology, and the other books like Introduction to Human Physiology by Sherwood. So like this, different books are used for the preparation of this presentation. You can also read these books to get information about this steroid hormones. So with these words, we are concluding this third section of 5th unit of Human Physiology paper. Thank you very much.